$1,000 in airtime makes it a tight race almost by definition.
Gansky is now in the hotel, and
Yes.
what are his plans now for the next hour or so as we wait for
He
those
plans to make his acceptance speech.
as do many candidates. Thank you very much, Bart. We'll have
It might be predominantly Republican, we have to wait and see, but the tone of the Congress this president will have to deal with. And my question is, when does lame duck disease set in?
Well, I'll have to tell you, having worked for this president, there's no such thing as lame duck disease for him. He's intent on a strong agenda for these next 4 years. He's talked about education. He's talked about balancing the budget. He's talked about implementing health care provisions for kids. He's talked about doing a lot of things in terms of crime, particularly with regards to gangs, youth gangs, and neighborhoods. He's got a very clear agenda, and I think right now, if the Republicans are smart and the Democrats are smart, there'll be a bipartisan effort to implement that agenda. The American people, frankly, are sick of gridlock and partisanship and the kind of political attacks and personal attacks that we've seen. That's reflected in this vote tonight.
Well, speaking of political and personal attacks, Leon Panetta, last question. The president has been relentlessly attacked in these last days and weeks by Bob Dole and Ross Perot on ethics.
Exactly, but we talked to them down at headquarters earlier where the Democratic supporters were jubilant in hearing that news anyway.
Well, right now, why don't we go back to Democratic headquarters, and Steve Carlin is standing by there.
That's right, we want to go back to Democratic State Party Chair Mike Peterson. And Mike, here we go again. I mean, we have very close numbers between McBurney and Gansky here, 14% of the precincts reporting in, but it's 50-50.
Well, we always thought that this race, like the others, would be closing as well. One of the great things that we saw, especially right after the debates that you all hosted, was that there was a surge of support for Connie McBurney. She sort of answered a lot of questions in people's minds as to whether or not she knew the issues and the answers. More importantly, she related to common people and set out a working agenda that we think is driving these numbers right now on her behalf.
Okay, our poll and all the other polls showed her about 5% behind with about 13% undecided. A lot of people side with the challenger here down the stretch.
But as often happens, when you have a large undecideds, they usually break for the challenger. But again, in the polling or in the debates that we've seen the last couple of weeks, Connie answered a lot of questions. More importantly, she connected with mainstream voters. I think people like her, they know her, and we hope that they're going to ultimately elect her to Congress.
Okay, we just saw the Harkin numbers 60-39. You think that's going to hold up?
Well, you know, we know in the exit polls that it's really going to tighten up. We're just happy that we have this cushion at this point as we head into Western Iowa and get those precincts reporting.
Okay, Mike Peterson, once again, thank you very much. The State Democratic Party chair is one happy guy right now because things seem to be going their way, but they could change a little bit. Let's go over to Jeanette Trumpeter. It looks like she has somebody interesting to talk to. Jeanette?
Everyone's boogieing behind you. This is the atmosphere at the Democratic headquarters. Let's just take a walk here. Notice that we're seeing a lot of young faces, and of course you can't have Election 96 without a little Macarena. So here we go. We have folks up front doing the Macarena. I won't be joining in this, but here we go. Can we pan to my left over here, Sarah Strom, and we have the Macarena going. Again, a close race still with McBurney, but they are celebrating the Clinton win and the Harkin win. All ages here.
The idea that Georgia needs a moderate in order to fill the legendary shoes of Sam Nunn and Richard Russell, and he tried to portray Guy Milner as an extremist. We're waiting tonight here at Max Cleland headquarters to see if that campaign theme worked. For now, we're live at Cleveland headquarters. Pam Martin, Channel 2 Action News.
Right. Not a victory statement.
And as we continue our round robin of TV stations, next back to WCVB TV in Boston for Senator John Kerry.
Thank you very much, Chet. It is almost an electric crowd right now. I would only describe it as electric when the senator absolutely does arrive. What's been happening up on stage is they've been waving a broom. It's their symbolism for the victory that they believe has just occurred with the congressional races throughout the state. senator, the senior senator from the Commonwealth, has just arrived on scene. Senator Kerry has actually been unusually quiet for him. He's a man who earned a title earlier in his career as something he didn't like a whole lot, as Live Shot Kerry, because of his desire for media attention. Well, he certainly got his share in the last 11 months, and when you talk to his advisors and those people who were close to him in the last 11 months, this absolutely was a fight that he did not want. Let's go to the podium for a second. Here's the senior senator.
John Kerry tonight. And we're going to keep on doing it for Democrats. Listen, John Kerry faced a formidable opponent and one that no one deserved to win more this evening in this country, because John Kerry has been on the side of working families and the best instincts of Massachusetts. And we await the opportunity to work together as a team. And I'll ask you something. Massachusetts has had great teams. And when we had Yastrzemski, we never were looking forward to breaking up the Red Sox. When we had Larry Bird, we never wanted to break up the Celtics. And we got Kennedy, Kerry, Kennedy, and we're not going to break up that team.
Mayor Capuano, Mayor Teresian, Mayor Harrington. Did I miss the mayor?
Clearly, this has turned into a bit of a Democratic party right now, and the junior senator who has won a race that was probably as tough as any race he's ever been in. 12 years ago, he had a tough fight within the primary against Jim Shannon, but this is clearly the toughest race he ever possibly had. They're going to bring the family up right now. When I got finished talking with John Martella, he said, remember way back when, 11 months, when we all found out that Governor Weld was going to make this fight against John Kerry. And he looked across the table at me and he said, this is a fight we don't want. They genuinely feared the governor. The reason they feared him was, of course, he had enormous popularity. And Mr. Kerry, quite honestly, had never been tested in a general election in this state, a test of major proportions like the one he was at this time. They also were very candid about what it was like during the summertime. There was a period when their own polling showed that it had fallen to a dead-even race. It didn't stay there for long in their view. They were always at variance with what they saw as the independent polling done by both us and other news organizations. They always had their man with a slight advantage, and in the last 2 weeks, they showed him with nothing lower than a 6-point advantage. And one of the things that fueled that was a graphic that we put up earlier, and it is the classic gender gap that we see between Democrats and Republicans. It was also seen in this state. And the driving difference between the vote that Mr. Kerry got and the vote that Mr. Weld got is the female vote. And one of the explanations we heard from his people was indeed that when it comes to caring about what happens to other people and caring about your families, when the economy is going reasonably well, Democrats in this state tend to do better, and they tend to do better in large measure because of the female vote. And if there is one single reason why they believe that the junior senator did as well as he did, it is because of...
So right now at all Wiley centers, lenses are on sale. Single vision, bifocals, trifocals, the Wiley thin lens, priced to save you money. The Wiley Eye Care Centers accept or honor most insurance plans. We provide the best eye care in Iowa, and you deserve the best. Come see us at Wiley's.
CNN Headline News, I'm Lynn Russell. Polls remain open in 5 states, but history already has been made tonight. Voters have renewed President Clinton's lease on the White House for 4 more years. Chuck Roberts joins us from our election desk now with the very latest results. Hello again, Chuck.
All right, Lynn, thanks very much. President Clinton has crossed that electoral threshold in the '96 presidential race. Presidential victories nationwide have given him 291 electoral votes. That's 21 more than the 270 he needed to win another term. Mr. Clinton, the first Democrat to be reelected since Franklin D. Roosevelt back in 1936. Let's take a look at the popular vote. It's a lot closer in the popular vote, actually. 19 million to 16 million, 38% reporting, so it's a 50 to 42% spread right now. Ross Perot in third place with 8%. Republican challenger Bob Dole has yet to concede defeat. His campaign says a statement that Dole had completed his last political mission with courage and honor was released prematurely. Dole made presidential ethics the cornerstone of his campaign in the weeks leading up to the election. Presidential Press Secretary Mike McCurry says the president's focus on the future took him over the top.
The president appealed to the center of the American political spectrum. He talked about the future. You know, American elections turn on the issues of peace and prosperity. America's at peace in the world. Our economy is growing. The president really defined a series of things that he wants to do to strengthen the future. But, you know, most important, the president said, I've got a good record, I'm proud of it, but I'm not going to sit on it. I'm going to build on it, literally build a bridge to the 21st century. And I think because he talked about the future, he didn't dwell on the past.
That at the moment is a net gain for the Democrats of 5 seats. Now that doesn't sound like much because they need, by this number, 19 to win. But the fact is that in 1992, with Bill Clinton winning, the Democrats went into the Rocky Mountain states 20 seats behind and then won big all throughout the West, Oregon, Washington, California. And there are a lot of seats up for grabs in California and Washington and a couple in Oregon. So we could have a night that surprises us on the Democratic House of Representatives.
Okay, thanks, Cokie, very much. In presidential matters, we can eliminate one of those great yellow marks up there on the map and say that Mississippi, which was too close to call for some time, we now project has gone to Senator Dole. This is Republican territory. Mr. Clinton never campaigned in Mississippi. In fact, Mr. Dole hasn't been there in a long time, pretty much knowing how things were going to go. Now, Mr. Dole tonight has gone from the Watergate to his headquarters in Washington, but we're not quite sure yet what his intentions are about making a concession speech. So let's check in with Jim Wooten, who is there. Jim.
Peter, I don't know when he's going to make a concession speech either, but he went from the Watergate, which is on the Potomac at the other end of the city, all the way up here nearly to Capitol Hill. It's about halfway between the White House and the Congress where he served so many years. Nelson Warfield's earlier statement about a Dole concession has now, as you reported, been withdrawn. I can well imagine, though I do not know, that the Republican National Committee in the form of Haley Barbour must have been on the phone immediately, given all those seats in California that are up for grabs that Cokie mentioned. You don't issue a concession at whatever time it was, 9:10 or 9:15. So I think we can rest assured, though, that one of the things Senator Dole brought with him here to the Renaissance Hotel is a copy of a concession speech.
Okay, thanks so much, Jim. Republicans perhaps remembering President Carter in 1980, who made his concession speech, which was what set off this great firestorm about projections and whether or not it had an effect in California. I remind you, there's still ample opportunity to vote in California, and many people in the country this year, even those who have complained about the projections which the networks have been making, and which can be found, by the way, in a variety of other places, that much of the voter turnout has been driven by issues and races which are below the presidential level. We would like to tell you something about turnout at the moment. We don't know very much. The only place, we've had any sense of it at all is in Kentucky. We haven't even had all of the results in from Kentucky, but very close to 100% returns in Kentucky, which closes fairly early. And actually, we projected it for Mr. Clinton some time ago, but in fact, the turnout in Kentucky this year, we take a close look, with about 95% of the vote in, says that 47% of the voting age population has turned out, as opposed to 1992, when 54% of the voting age population turned out. It tells us nothing about the rest of the country. It only tells us something about Kentucky. Want to check in at Democratic National Headquarters in Washington, where Michelle McQueen is standing by. Michelle, we have heard a couple of times here tonight about pressure on Mr. Clinton to fulfill some promises made. Do I hear reports of infighting in Democratic Party already?
Well, Peter, the cigar
winners have long since come out here, and there's even been some dancing in the aisles. But this is well, you can't tell right now, but this has been a rather subdued affair here. And I think that could be because many of the people who are here tonight are people who have the most reason to be disappointed with the president. You have members of labor unions who are disappointed with his support for the NAFTA agreement. You have members of the gay and lesbian community who've been disappointed with the president's support of the Defense of Marriage Act. And one of the things they've been telling us here tonight is that they are going to be expecting President Clinton to support more of their issues in his upcoming term. And that could be a sign of some conflict, particularly given that it doesn't appear right now that the Congress is going to be in Democratic terms.
Okay, thanks very much, Michelle McQueen. As things continue there throughout the evening, we'll come back to you. In a moment, we're going to sort of eavesdrop on their dialogue, America's most publicly contentious.
CNN coverage of Election 96. Live from CNN Center, here are Judy Woodruff, Bernard Shaw, Bill Schneider, and Ken Bodie.
Well, amidst all the political news that we are reporting tonight, we do have some serious news to tell you about, and that is a car accident that the governor of Mississippi, Kirk Fordyce, was in a little bit earlier tonight. He was driving a sport utility vehicle on an interstate near Jackson, Mississippi, when the car turned over. It was caught on fire. He was pulled from a burning wreckage. He was unconscious, and he's since been taken to a hospital and is reported in serious condition. Kirk Fordyce is 62 years old. He was strapped in with a seatbelt and an airbag and had to be literally cut out of the car in order to be taken to the hospital. Fractured ribs, a collapsed left lung, lacerations, and more. So we'll be watching for the condition of Governor Fordyce throughout this evening. Bernie.
96 minutes ago, the networks declared that President Clinton had won re-election. The polls do not close in California for another 22 minutes. Our Jennifer Arthur has been tracking this story and the resonance it's created within California. Jennifer is in Santa Monica.
That's right, Bernie. There are some key congressional races going on here. We talked with a lot of voters here in the last few minutes of polling in California. But the question really is, with the presidential race already called, is that fair to West Coast voters? Voters in the West fall into three main categories. First, there are those vehemently opposed to the networks declaring early that a presidential candidate has beaten.
I want you to know that being in a family with a politician can sometimes be challenging. And these Durbans have put up with this politician for a long time. But let me say also, I want to thank my congressional and my campaign staff. I'm fortunate to be surrounded by people of great quality who continue to cover me with glory and to forgive my shortcomings. But I want to single out one person who has put more into this Durban political life than any other staffer. I want to personally thank Mike Daley and his family for all that they have given me. Thank you, Mike.
Well, Dick Durbin, Illinois, soon to become Illinois' newest senator, the junior senator now. He'll fill the seat of retiring Paul Simon.
And now let's check in with WGN's Tom Skilling for an update on the weather. Tom?
Well, Steve and Allison, a busy night not only on the political front, but the weather is pretty active too, with surging temps on gusty south winds tomorrow and growing indications of a very chilly weekend ahead. After a cool day today, but a warmer one than we've seen recently, with a 52-degree high in Chicago. Tomorrow we should jump to the 60s, but fall back to the 50s and begin to slide after that, and that's just the beginning. On Thursday, the real cool weather hits Friday and the weekend.
Join me in a round of applause and thanks to Jim and Sarah Brady. And let me say this. To my fellow legislators, Democrats and Republicans, in Springfield and in Washington, I hope this victory tonight is a message that no political official in this state should ever be cowered by the gun extremist. I hope that this campaign has proven that if you stand with the police and with the families in Illinois for sensible gun control, you'll be a winner.
Dick Durbin proclaiming victory with his supporters in downtown Chicago at his headquarters as he is named the projected winner of the race for U.S. Senate. Illinois has not sent a Republican to the Senate since it re-elected Charles Percy in 1978.
And now we take you to WCBB TV in Boston, where Senator John Kerry is talking.
Grateful Dead sang and wrote, "What a long, strange trip this has been."
I can hear it now. I can hear it now, the gnashing of teeth in the editorial department of the Charlotte Observer, the Raleigh News Observer, the Greensboro Daily News, the Winston-Salem Journal, and I saw Dan Rather trying to avoid announcing who was the winner in North Carolina. And did you see the news report, I guess it was last night or this morning, that cousin Jimmy Carter came to North Carolina yesterday. Did you see that? And he claimed kinship. He said he was my cousin. Not so fast, Jimmy.
75-year-old Jesse Helms celebrating with his supporters his win in the North Carolina Senate race. Let's travel several hundred miles north to the state of Massachusetts, where John Kerry, the incumbent senator, has been reelected. Democrat reelected in Massachusetts. John Kerry defeating the governor of Massachusetts, the Republican William Weld, who had hoped to unseat him. Let's listen to John Kerry.
And I want the people of Massachusetts to know that I extend my hand to him in a spirit of bipartisanship, as I know others who have fought with us in this effort also do, because in the end, it's our responsibility to do what is best for Massachusetts. And we will build on that, and we will do that. So, Governor, you kind of jumped the gun on where we're going to have this beer. But let me tell you, there's no doubt we're going to have not one, but a couple of beers somewhere pretty soon. And
going now to Minneapolis, where incumbent Paul Wellstone, one of the most liberal persons in the Senate, a Democrat, won re-election. This is the second time around that Rudy Boschwitz tried to beat Wellstone. This is the way our board looks at this hour, with 18% of the precincts reporting. Wellstone with 59% to Boschwitz's 38%. And here he is now, tired but happy.
I want to say to all of Minnesota, we must, we will continue to do everything we can, all of us together, to reduce the violence, too much violence in homes, in schools, and in communities. I want to say to Minnesotans,
we had an incredibly talented team that put all those television shows together. They haven't slept. If they're here tonight, and I know they're here, they're probably standing up asleep tonight, making up for lost time, because they've been going night and day. Thank you, Tom and Mike and Bill, and thank the great crew from AMS. You are terrific. we're going to keep the pressure on the major issues. I think they've gotten the word on campaign finance reform, don't you? They've repented and been reborn. My dream is they will go to heaven because they do what they say they'll do, right? Then it's done. It's done. But that's got to stop. We have got to get that done, and we have got to get campaign reform in terms of the time for campaign and all that done. We must set the highest ethical and moral standards for the people who serve in our government, and all of that has got to be changed from rules to laws in the next 4 years, and we're going to have to stand at the gate and keep the pressure on, and we will. Now, we will not let our children and grandchildren pay an 82% tax rate, which our government forecasts they will. We've got to have the balanced budget amendment. We've got to have the plan to balance the budget and all the things that you have fought so hard and so long for, and we've got to stand at the gate to make sure that happens if we want to pass on a better, stronger country to our children. We will make the 21st century the best in our country's history, but you and I have to stay on watch. We have to keep the pressure on, and as I've said 1,000 times to both parties when they say, what does it take to make all of you people go away? And that is, do all of this and then we don't have anything to talk about, right? It's done. Thank you. You've worked night and day. You've done a tremendous job. Take a little break and then we'll climb back in the ring and keep the pressure on to see that everybody keeps those promises, right? Great. And now, let's hear from Pat Cho.
Thank you very much, Ross, Margot, and everyone. Of course, we give our heartfelt and best wishes to the President and congratulate him. And we hope, for the sake of all, that his administration will be the most brilliant and productive in American history. We also, I think, need to note that this is a special and historic moment. 10 months ago, one man, Ross Perot, made the call to create a new party in America. Under his leadership, thousands of volunteers across this country, true patriots, did what was necessary in a heroic effort to get this party on 50 state ballots. 1.4 million Americans had the courage to sign a ballot to create this party. And tonight, it appears that somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 8 million people had the integrity to vote their conscience and make this party an absolute reality. What we can say tonight, now that this party has passed the 5% level and met the test, is that henceforth in America, our policies and our governance will be dictated by a three-party system. And if people think we've accomplished a lot in 10 months, wait till they give us 48 more months. That portion, those millions of voters who have voted for reform,